Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the video. So, recently I've been watching Freddy Babe's videos on his thoughts on Gwent and his feelings about Gwent, and I have feelings too. Now, I'm not going to cry, right? But I do want to give my thoughts and feelings towards Gwent Homecoming. I've been wanting to do this for a while, in fact. I mean, a lot of people did it during like the PTR or immediately after release. But I wanted to actually wait. And I think 3 or 4 weeks, however long it's been, is sufficient. Now, if anyone watches my Twitch channel over my YouTube, that's like unedited, so you get to see my feelings. And a lot of them will know that I am struggling to actually play Gwent Homecoming and struggling to enjoy it. I've played Gwent for 2 years. Even more so because I did PvP in The Witcher 3 Gwent with printed decks. And I think a lot of that comes to, it's hard to pinpoint it, but I think a lot of it comes to, it doesn't necessarily feel like Gwent anymore. And I think I'm going to, in this video, talk about a lot of the things I don't like about Gwent Homecoming. Now, a lot of them you probably will agree with. I think there's common things here, but some of them are definitely my issues. And while I said it's hard to pinpoint exactly why I don't like Gwent Homecoming, because I've tried to like it, and I'm still trying, but it just doesn't feel right. And I relate that down to that it's not really like Gwent anymore, I feel. But I'm hoping some of these elements that I'm going to talk about really illuminate that and hopefully allow us to zone in on my actual feelings, because I'm still trying to discover why I don't like it in general myself. So if we just start by talking about some of the things I don't like. Okay, so the first thing is the lack of mulligans on leaders. So it feels really bad that, leaders only get 1 or 2 mulligans. It feels super restrictive there, and I don't like it. I think it's hurting the game in terms of consistency, which I think is something which old Gwent a lot of people liked. We don't have to go mega consistency, but I think we've gone too far in the opposite direction with these mulligans. Now, this also gets exacerbated by the lack of blacklisting, and I really don't understand why blacklisting is not in the game. I think one of my biggest annoyances, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the game, but one of my biggest annoyances is when I mulligan away a ghoul and I get a ghoul, or something like that. It really annoys me quite dramatically, because the mulligans are precious. You've only got a few of them, and you don't want to be wasting them to mulligan something which you've just got rid of. It's just beyond idiotic. It's easy to fix the blacklist. Now, I think they actually probably will. There's a lot of stuff on this list which I think could be fixed, maybe will be fixed. I know there's some things that won't be fixed. But this is definitely one of them. I think fixing the blacklisting will help. Also, this third tier that goes along with mulligans, which is consistency. Feeling like there's a strategy to the mulligans is something which I don't feel like we have now, where we used to have it. I used to think about my mulligans a bit more. I mulligan this first because I've got 2 copies in the deck, which means I don't draw those 2 copies straight away. I mulligan this next to make sure that I don't get the 3rd copy and I get the 2nd copy out of it ready for the muster effects, the summons, and then I can mulligan this safely. And you used to have to think about that, but now generally I don't feel you have that strategy. And if I really want to try and get these golds in the current version of mulligans, I don't think you've got any real way to attempt to try and get golds from your mulligans or try and get something that you're looking for. It's really you mulligan, you mulligan, you mulligan. Oh, I got the same bronze again. That's annoying. Whereas if blacklisting was in, I could mulligan this bronze, this bronze, this bronze, and I'm more likely to get my golds. It's especially useful if you save your mulligans to round 3 and you've played a lot of your bronzes, then you'll probably get a lot more golds coming in. So I really just think blacklisting should come in. I'd like to see more mulligans as well, please, or especially for the lower ones at least. It's just I think it would tick a lot of boxes to help the game feel a lot more fun and consistent. It feels like I can do what I want to do rather than I have to worry about things. I think one of the issues with the game right now, I'm having anyway, is that when I win, I don't feel that great about it, and when I lose, I feel really horrible about it. It feels really annoying, and I think that's because of the consistency. If I win, sure, I got it, And if I didn't win, I probably didn't get what I wanted. But it's also on to this next point, which there's a very control-heavy removal meta going on. Now, I understand the game. I played it for a long time, and I understand how the game works. So I understand that control is very powerful, and it's always going to be there. It's a rock, paper, scissors between control, engines, and value. Okay? Engines beat value, value beats control, and control beats engines. But I just feel like a lot of the cool cards just get removed. You should try and do anything interesting. Removed. And there's a lot more ways to remove things now. You can move it if it's locked to a particular row. You can lock it. You can just outright kill it. Now, it's harder to unlock something than it is to lock it. Locking it seems a lot easier. And there's a lot of annoying cards in respects to that as well. I guess it's I think I could probably title it as a lot of ways to disrupt your opponent. While obviously that's key to the game, I think there's an overly large amount in pretty much every aspect, and it really shows. And it annoys me when I play a game and I feel like I just can't do anything fun. I have to play the same old rubbish in order to try. And I think this brings me on to my next point very, very nicely. And that is, there's 3 cards here, and then another 2 cards later on, that I think, design-wise, I really don't like. Now, it's not necessarily that the cards themselves I don't like, it's the CD Projekt Red stance on the cards that I don't like. So, the cards that can be Viper Witcher and the Usurper. Now, you may have opinions on these cards. You may say Viper Witcher is not very good. It's not a very good card until it hits one of your golds, I suppose. Like, it hit my Ragnarok the other day, and it's 4 strength. That's about average. It's not too bad, and you can high roll with it a bit. The Usurper, you can say, well, it counters annoying things, and generally it's not considered amazing. I'm actually quite excited to see Usurper in tournament play. I think that'd be quite an interesting aspect. However, it's the design decision that I don't like. If we go back in time, right, and we go back to about a year and a half ago when Nilfgaard were just about to be released, there was a Nilfgaard preview in CD Projekt Red headquarters, and I was invited to play it. And before I got to do so, I started asking questions, and one of the questions I asked was, so Nilfgaard's coming out. Are we going to get an Emir leader card from his old Witcher 3 ability where he cancels out the opponent's leader card? Basically the Usurper's ability now. And they said, no, we'd never do that because it's not fun for your opponent to not be able to play their deck. So we're never going to put that in because it's just not fun, And now they seem to reverse that design decision and brought in the Usurper. I asked them a different question. So reveals coming in, and you can see what cards. Are we able to destroy cards in their hand or discard them or something like that? And they said, no, we'd never do that because obviously it's not fun for your opponent not to be able to play the cards in their hand. We don't want to disrupt or ruin cards before they've actually had a chance to play them. That feels kind of bad. And they seem to reverse that particular design decision with Camby as well. So, he can discard a card from your hand. And then also for the deck, they've reversed the design decision to be able to remove cards from the deck before the opponent's been able to play them with the Viper Witcher. So these 3 cards, while necessarily I don't mind Camby, Viper Witchers may not be that good, but when they hit something good, you'll know it. And the Usurper, again, interesting in tournaments and stuff. It's the philosophy and the stance CD Projekt has with these 3 cards that really just shows you how they've changed their sort of philosophy of Gwent. It used to be about, let's not ruin the opponent's fun by locking this and discarding that from his hand and removing that from his deck so he can't play the cards that he wants to play. And now they've changed it all on its head so that, you don't get to play with that. No, you don't get to play with that. So unfortunately, we roll a dice and you don't get to play with that gold card that was in your deck. And to be honest, to me, that might be a really good indication of why I say it doesn't feel like Gwent anymore. Just a little bit. Now, the other cards that I was talking about are things like the existence of Xavier lemons. So the lemon, I understand the card is good, and I understand that he counters things. He's a tech card, and he's a reasonably decent tech card. I like to think that I'm savvy on how good he is and why he's good and stuff like that. But if I move away from that for a second and go on to another thing that I don't like, I feel like CD Projekt Red has dropped the ball on faction identity. While we do have some faction identity in the game, like Skellige have the Bloodthirst a little bit, they have Discard. You can call that faction identity in this particular case. Monsters have high unit and stuff like that. But I think they really didn't do... There isn't enough. Now, in the midwinter patch, I think we were suffering from a lack of faction identity there. And that's what this Homecoming was supposed to bring back. And I don't think they've done it. I really miss the fact that Skellige used to be about resurrection, strengthening, and I understand strengthening is a dangerous thing, but this used to be what Skellige was about. And we've got some resurrections, but it's not faction identity. It's not an overarching concept of Skellige. To be honest, the resurrections are kind of crappy most of the time, So I feel like that's not a thing. Monsters, where's the weather? Where's the cool, weather synergy? The Foglets don't do anything regarding Foglety abilities anymore. That feels kind of bad as well. And like I said, some things they may fix. This might all come in later, but I didn't quite realize I was waiting 6 months of no content for Homecoming just to be, okay, now I've got to wait another 2 months until December, and then I've got to wait another 2 months until they decide to bring out another archetype. And it just feels like we've been waiting for a long time. It's been even more than 6 months because, we waited for midwinter and played that for a long time. But yeah, I was saying I think they dropped the ball on the faction identity. There is some there. We've got the Order, Northern Realms, if it wasn't shit half the time. But I feel like there's so much more. I don't feel like it's really fleshed out at all. And why I was saying that is that, like, Skellige resurrecting faction identity, and then they print a card like the Lemon, the Xavier Lemon, which just basically shuts down fun again, like Camby does, and sometimes Viper Witchers more so. Just shuts down. It's like a massively thing. Oh, you've got this. Why can't you let opponents do what they want to do with their decks? And make the game more balanced around the fun aspects rather than all right, you lose aspects. It bothers me a little bit. I'm not massively bothered about it because I'm struggling to play as it is, and there's nothing really fucking worth resurrecting half the time. But really only shuts down a couple of things at the minute. But if there was a faction identity, Xavier Morin would really piss me off. So let's go on to the next thing. Now, this is something they can definitely fix, and that is the slowness of the game. Seeing Foltest or Ethne use their leader ability is super slow, makes the game mature. I think it should definitely be able to play orders quicker than it normally is, like as Summit's firing, you should be able to fire something else, or play a card then fire something. Hearthstone does it, so if Summit dies you can't target it, so there are ways around this type of thing. But this is something that we are guaranteed to get faster as the game upgrades, so that's fine. But obviously I think it's worth saying that it is slow, and a lot of people feel that way. Right, so I think... Oh no, that's not the last thing. Removal of mechanics is annoying to me. Armor removal, boons, pretty much weather and weather synergy for the most part. Still a tiny bit. Strengthening, weakening, stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff removed, and obviously it makes for a blander gameplay, which is a shame. I think a lot of these might be related to faction identity, but it's annoying how we're having to wait even further for them. And the weakening of mechanics or archetypes. Now, I understand they don't want to focus on archetypes. They're trying to move away and make it such a more fluid experience when you're building a deck. Now, I actually think I prefer archetypes. I'm going to say it. You know what? I'm going to say it. I actually liked archetypes. It felt concise, it felt like fun, and I don't know, you could always, it took a lot of optimization to actually get it to work. You couldn't just slap everything in like people say. But it was a good start, and it felt like, because we had 3 bronzes, which I think might be another issue, I can't remember if I mentioned it, it felt like when I put a card in, I could put a decent chunk of them in so I could try and get that strategy, because you wouldn't pull them all. Whereas now it feels like you're playing a lot of fluff cards, which is not very interesting. But yeah, a lot of the archetypes don't seem that fleshed out. Now I'm going to briefly show you some of the old Gwent and compare it to some of the new Gwent, and just see how many cards of particular things there are. Okay, so this is old Gwent, and if I just type in discard up here, these are all the discard cards for Skellige, although there are a couple of neutrals in here as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, maybe 13 if we get rid of that. I think that's quite a good one. And I think that's quite a good one in some respects. We've also got cards, so there may be more as well, like things like Wolfsbane was pretty good, pretty standard in Skellige discard, to be fair. And you know, there's probably missing some, maybe adding some, but yeah, there was about 13 there. Whereas if we look at new Gwent and then we type it in discard, we've got significantly less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they're not that creative. They're not that interesting. So summon the unit when you discard it, gain a charge, discard, 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 discard specials. There's not even a Wolfsbane that's worth discarding anymore. That's still good, you know, that I've already talked about, and then King Bran, which I think is reasonably good for the archetype. So, you know, it's significantly less. Now again, there may be other cards, like in old Gwent, like Wolfsbane, which are not appearing here. I know we've got Darren, but it feels like discard here is discarding just for the sole purpose of thinning your deck and consistency. It's really not doing much. It's your leader card, which just does 1 damage every time you discard. It's not particularly fully fleshed, in my opinion. Let's try going to consume instead. So if we type consume, I realize in new Gwent, consume is not really wholly consume. Consume decks are kind of Death Wish, kind of spawning 1 strength units, kind of destroying 1 strength units. So again, that's less focused. But here, consume, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Why is that coming up as consume? I guess you got maybe 5. I think that's probably a good card. That was like a great card anyway. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And again, some of them you might not count, like you might get rid of her because she wasn't that good in the end. And there might be other ones that were already quite good that are not showing up. So what was it, about 16? Whereas in new Gwent, consume, significantly less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These guys are showing up. And while it does increase her, I wouldn't necessarily call them consume cards. And again, some might be showing up and some might not be showing up. Like you got Forktail, which in this kind of sense kind of work as consume because it's not really consume. It's more about destroying your own units. But you can see there's not as much variety here as there is here. Okay. Which I just thought was, it's just something worth noting. I mean, you may say that, yeah, but most of the important ones are over. You know, the ghouls are over, the Osral's over, giant toads over, that's over. A lot of them are pretty much over anyway. But it just goes to show, I think, that some archetypes more than others have been reduced a little bit. Which I think is unfortunate. I mean, if I take a list of archetypes which are weakened, we've got spies, we've got relics, we've got consume, we've got alchemy, we've got reveal, we've got discard, we've got cursed, and I feel like they've all been reduced a bit, which is a shame because I actually do like archetypes. But reveal is another big one worth mentioning. I think everyone's mentioned this, everyone and their mother. Oh, Ma, what do you think of reveal? But you know, it's turned into a slot RNG, and the thing is, it wouldn't be so bad. It would be, well, if it was crap, then no one would be complaining as much, apart from the fact that it would be a dead archetype. But it actually has some reasonable, significant value to it, power. The Arbalists, they are 3 strength and do 2 damage, so that's 5 value, which is about average. And then if you get the IRG high roll, then it does another 2 damage. Now the difference between 2 removal and 4 removal is massive. 4 removal can win you a game because it denies an engine completely, which really puts the opponent on the back foot. Again, as you reveal something, you may reveal a Dalian foot soldier, which then gets you an extra 4 strength. So it turns into a 5 plus 2 plus 4, and maybe the removal of an engine, and that's just a huge spike. The spotters can hit a 2, you know, they can hit a 1, sorry, and become a 2, or they can hit a 10 or a 9 or a 13 or something, which becomes crazy. So in terms of the risk reward, like, yeah, you may lose 2 value over the standard value of it, but you may gain like 10 value over the standard value of it. So risk reward is really good. And there's just quite a lot. I mean, Swears is broken as fuck, man. 8 provisions, and he's a 3 strength body, which typically does about 10 to 13 damage. That's ridiculous, you know, for 8 provisions. And there's no even strategy to using him. You just play your deck as usual, and he becomes this big removal card at the end. Now, obviously, Last Say just counts a lot there. So don't play your powerful card until the end. But still, reveal bastardization there is something which just feels like CD Projekt Red don't understand what we wanted. And I think there's only one more topic, but all of these topics really just kind of demonstrate my frustration with the game, you know, and my feelings towards it. The last thing I want to talk about is my annoyance on some unreactability in Gwent. And this might come back to why it doesn't feel like Gwent very much anymore. Previously, if someone was trying to set up an epidemic or a scorch, you could react to it. You could see it coming if you were using your loaf, and you could try and do something about it. You could give them a spy. I'm not saying spies are great. I'm not sure, but you know, you could buff up one of the opponents. You could stagger one of yours so their scorch didn't work, and then they would have to try again. There'll be a bit of back and forth, try and get that to go off. Now that doesn't matter. You've got Mastercrafted Spears, Ethne, and Croc, and stuff like this, where you can do orders and then scorch on the same turn. And it means as a player, it's inevitable most of the time that they'll get a decent scorch or epidemic against you. Now, Shin Miri had a decent idea in terms of you can only play orders after you've played a card, or at least sometimes, maybe with certain artifacts or something. However, it doesn't fix everything, but it does mean that you can't align something and then scorch in the same turn. You'd have to align it the turn before and then try and do the scorch. And if they staggered, then you'd have to align it again. It's fine. However, it doesn't fix everything, because like things like Shiru, which he has a card and he has an order. So obviously you just play Shiru and then you do all your orders and then scorch everything. But and it may have some repercussions down the line with some other archetypes which end up not working because you can't use your orders before you play your card. But yeah, that was just something which doesn't feel particularly Gwent anymore, where you can start getting this lack of unreactability in a lot of your opponent's strategies. Now, obviously we can destroy Thunderbolt potions, there's a lot of setup, and I'm not blind to the fact that in this version of Gwent, we're in the best position possible to protect units. We can play a Thunderbolt potion and then play a card to protect it. We can play Petra's Filter to get Zeal and then place a unit. There's a lot of ways to protect units in this version, as opposed to the previous version, which didn't really have any. But there is some unreactability, which is annoying. So, I think that is everything on my list of things that I'm not enjoying about Gwent Homecoming. I have been a very negative person here. Don't believe that there's not some good things in the game. There definitely is some good things in the game. But they generally haven't changed an awful lot. So that's why I'm not mentioning it. And to be honest, this is really talking about why I don't like it, not why I do like it. Maybe I should do a video of why I do like it. But as my overall opinion is that I am struggling to enjoy it. And I don't quite know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning because I've recorded this video several times to try and be concise and interesting and not being too whiny. But this is not some confirmation that I'm going to Artifact. This is just my true opinion of the game. A lot of these aspects are things that I don't like. Some may be fixed, some might not be fixed. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'm worried that a lot of people are going to be moaning at me because obviously it's not very popular to be negative. I am still trying to be positive. I love doing content for Gwent. It's just playing it I struggle to do for the reasons listed. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you still on my channel and such. But take care of yourselves. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care, everyone.